So, today, so I still don't know what's going on this weekend. I'm probably just gonna skip it. It's been a long week for me, and I'm just tired. But so I'm on today. We're going to be opening up. All right, here. Yeah, all right. That it's hard to get the lighting right. Anyways, we're going to be opening a pack of Amonkhet. Um, and we're also going to be talking about the Book of M. So, or so yeah. In terms of news, like I said, I'm not sure what I'm doing this weekend, but I'm probably going to bail. So, if I bail on the with friends thing, then I'll be here all weekend, and I'll probably do a bunch of videos about both playing arena and opening up packs. I'll probably open up some more Throne of Eldraine packs, and probably try at some point to get through the rest of the Amonkhet, even though there's like 11 packs left, which, yeah. But, yeah. I guess that's kind of where I am. Nothing is coming this weekend, so, Winged Shepherd. So nothing really to look forward to in terms of unboxing. Oh, I guess I still need to do the unboxing of the Throne of Eldraine booster box. Yeah, unfortunately they don't. The booster boxes or booster bundles, sorry, the illusory wrappings don't come with that little handy guide book thing that shows you all the cards and gives you the backstory. I mean, I like those, but yeah, unfortunately, Wizards of the Coast is stopping that. So yeah, Pathfinder Initiate. We'll see how the Throne of Eldraine one looks and go from there. But there are exclusive cards that can only be found in that. Ooh, that might mean that it has different wording right here. I'll have to read that. Maybe it'll actually explain stuff. But yeah, so that's probably going to be the plan for this weekend. Cursed Minotaur. So, about the Book of M. So, if you haven't read it, it's a really weird book. It's basically based on the concept that people lose their shadows and then shed weakness. They start forgetting stuff and more stuff. The book started out it started out with this guy in India who on No Shadow Day, which is basically a day when the sun is directly overhead of you and therefore you like cast no shadow. His shadow didn't come back, and which was fine, and he like did interviews and everything, but then over time he started to forget stuff. Cartouche of Ambition. Until like he ended up forgetting the entire market where he first lost his shadow, and then all of a sudden that completely disappeared. And then this no shadow thing like spread across the globe, and Neff, Crop, and Tangler. It ends up being kind of like a zombie thing, except nobody knows how the shadowless become shadowless. It seems completely random. Oshra Cultive. And so the story primarily follows this guy and his wife who are by Washington, D.C., And they are on a wedding retreat when Washington, D.C. finally gets hit by the virus. So they and some of the other party members like hang out there and blazing volley. Over time, they slowly lose members. Like, 3 of the members there became shadowless, and they basically debated for like 3 days what to do, and then ended up just killing the shadowless. And so there's this entire thing about painful lesson about the shadowless, and like on one hand, it's kind of divided along the lines of the shadows versus the shadowless, but at the same time, in a lot of instances, there are people who are nest of scarabs. There are people or organizations who are like a mix of both shadowed and shadowless or whatever. Anyways, so the wife basically runs away after she loses her shadow, and she give me a minute. Embalmer's tools. She ends up running into this group of people who are traveling down to New Orleans to meet the one who gathers, or whatever. So, the one who gathers. Oh, these are both rare or uncommon. Common, uncommon. I didn't even realize we were at that part of the pack yet. So the one who gathers is basically Ketra's assistant. Ketra's attendant, sorry. So the one who gathers is actually this guy who was in a car accident a few weeks before the Shadowless began appearing. And he has amnesia. Retrograde amnesia. Alright. Runus the Indomitable. 3 mana, 5/5. Death Touch and Indestructible. Runus the Indomitable can't be blocked unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. And it can make another creature get +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. This is 82. I already have a copy of that, but that one's a fresh copy. That one's what? Mythic Rare Eve. Alright. So where was I? Oh yeah, so she kind of runs away, meets up with this group of other shadowless, and they start heading down. So the one who gathers, he was in a car accident and had total amnesia. He ends up being taken and meeting with the guy with no shadow, because the guy with no shadow is losing his memories, but the one who gathers has his memories, has his shadow, but no memories. And so there's this weird 18, kind of like they're opposites to each other in terms of one has no memories and is trying to get them back, and the other has memories and is constantly losing them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So literally no new cards, but I did get 2 cards that I had older copies of. So yeah, they end up meeting, and like since he doesn't remember his name, he becomes the one who gathers. And alright. So anyways, Max, the female lead of the book, ends up running away and meeting up with a group led by Ursula, who are driving down to try to find the one who gathers. But they're all shadowless, and so some of them are basically just forgetting stuff constantly. So, Ori, the male lead, ends up going after her, even though they promised each other they wouldn't. And he ends up joining up with some people that he knew before and then waging this weird war. And a lot of this has to do with like philosophy of memories and stuff. It's really bizarre. Like, yeah. So then, some stuff happens, and basically he ends up being the leader of this group, and they decide to go down to also go and meet the one who gathers as well. And so they get down there, and they're both of these people have encounters, or both of these groups have encounters with these people who are, I forget what they call themselves, but basically they're a bunch of shadowed individuals who worship the shadowless as basically the second coming of Christ or whatever. It's very kind of doomsday-esque religion. And so Ori and his group of shadowed people end up there, and they spend a few days preparing with He Who Gathers. And then the other group of people attack, and it basically comes upon a bunch of 8 shadowless to cast this magic spell. Oh, and yeah, and basically defeat the group of attacking people in New Orleans. Oh yeah, He Who Gathers was in New Orleans. So, I guess I should have mentioned, throughout the Bloodlust Insider, throughout the book, it is slowly revealed that the Shadowless actually have access to this pool that allows them to cast spells, essentially. And the payment for casting spells is them losing their memories, and that's why they don't have any. So, compelling argument. Over the course of the book, it's slowly revealed, but like in one instance, for example, Max and Ursula's group gets captured, and by the shadowless worshipping shadowed people, and in order to escape, Ursula literally calls on the magic to literally make herself forget that they were captured, and she takes the brunt of it, and Sacred Cat, which is there. She takes the brunt of it and loses a lot of her memories, including like who some of the people in the group are. But and the other people lose a bit of their memories, but she takes it the worst. But it allows them to basically get out of this prison and get back on the road, moving towards New Orleans. All right, Soul Stinger. 4 or 5 enters the battlefield with put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. When it dies, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature for each -1/-1 counter on Soul Stinger. So basically, you can transfer counters around with it. I think that's the last common card that I didn't have a fresh duplicate for. Uncommon, rare, mythic rare, 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 mythic rare, rare. Oh yeah, and then those. And so, like the story kind of pouncing cheetah. So, Like that's basically the kind of reveal, is that the people who are losing their shadows are basically able to cast magic spells, but each spell takes some of their memories until they basically forget everything. And it gets to the point where like they forget even to eat and how to breathe and stuff. Wasteland Scorpion. So basically, these people forget to the point that they end up dying, which, yeah. So, to save the city, the basically the people in New Orleans let the people outside New Orleans into the city and don't attack them, and then these 8 shadowless end up casting the spell, Everhorn Minotaur, that makes it so that all of the people look the same, and the people invading can no longer tell who's not invading. And then they release this. At some point, a hurricane had been trapped, and like the walls around New Orleans were made of a hurricane that was trapped in magic. They ended up releasing it to basically expel people. I don't know, it gets really weird. And then afterwards, it's revealed that, well, those who serve, Ori had begun a relationship with this other girl, Naz. Like, I don't know. And all while still chasing after his wife. It's really weird. Anyways, they end up being Scribe of the Mindful. They end up being both end up in New Orleans. They end up meeting, and then basically Max's mind isn't actually in Max's body. It's in Ursula's body. Supernatural stamina. Basically, it's implied that Max actually died, but before she did, she put the recording that she had been using to record her memories onto Ursula. And then Ursula made it to New Orleans like half dead. And by the word of the accursed, the one who gathers, who had been playing around with taking shadows and reattaching them to people, managed to craft a shadow from the shadow of the tape recorder using the memories on the tape recorder that he managed to attach to Ursula's body. So in essence, he took Max's memories and attached them to Ursula's body. Hazaret's monument. And so at the end of the book, like, Max decides to leave and go and try to bring new people back to the one who gathers to get their memories back. And Ori and Naz, the lady he began a relationship with, like, stay in New Orleans and, I don't know, build their family. So it's kind of like Lay Bare the Heart. It's kind of like this really weird, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. So how the book is also structured in a really weird way. Sheltered Thicket is a new one, and it's rare. Add red or green mana. 148. So Island. And then I think I have online first. Yep. Two new cards. One of them was a common, but the other was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah. All right. So Yeah, like the book is written in a very confusing way. So the main characters are uh, Ori and Max, along with Naz and the one who gathers. So it jumps around back and forth between them. On top of that, the entire concept of time is incredibly confusing. Uh, Basically, Max and Ori spend like 2 weeks, or no, they spend like a year hiding out at the wedding venue, and then they end up running away. And it apparently, even though Max and Ursula's group have an RV basically with them where they're driving, it still takes them over like a year, I think, to get from DC to New Orleans, which is crazy. And even Ori goes down into New Orleans, or goes down into DC to look for Max, and ends up spending a few weeks there. And then all of a sudden, like, it's been 2 years since he and Max left, and he finally makes it to New Orleans. It's just, it feels like a lot of stuff is glossed over throughout the book that maybe it shouldn't have been glossed over. And I don't know, it gets really weird. And also, you have to contend with like how the shadowless are altering reality. Like very early on, uh, Ori has an encounter with a shadowless, and the shadowless forgets what a gun is to an extent. Basically, calls it like a boomstick or thunder stick or something. And so, thereafter in the story, anytime anybody fires a gun, there's also an like electrical lightning component to it. It's just really weird. And I don't know. There's a lot about the story that I don't know. It felt like the story touched on a lot of interesting topics, but didn't stay with any of them long enough to fully explore them and like really get to the heart of the matter. It's like a quick anthology of hey, this would be cool if we wrote a story about it, but before we get into any of the implications of that, we're moving on, kind of thing. And I don't know, it kind of makes the story feel really weird. Sacred cat. Like I don't like, yeah. And then like the one thing about the story that is absolutely amazing is the thing that I don't think the author even realized she did. Like, we'll get into that later. But basically, right at the end of the story, when like Max walks in and meets Ori for the first time in 2 years, and Ori calls her Ursula. From then on, and even a little before then, once we caught up with Max, once she was back in, when she was in New Orleans, like there's nothing that ever explicitly makes it clear that she is in fact in Ursula's body. Like the descriptions of her afterwards say absolutely nothing about, or don't imply that she's in Ursula's body. Bloodlust Insider. There's no like description of her body sufficiently to disprove it from a third person perspective. And like that's the thing. The book was written in the first person perspective, so like Fanbearer, he who gathers, and everybody else, none of them know what Max looks like. Ori has a picture of her in his wallet, but like that's not the best thing to go on, and we'll get to that in a minute. But so basically, nobody knows what she looks like originally, so nobody else can definitively say. Even she doesn't remember. So the only person who knows is Ori, and Ori is, as I said, in a relationship with Naz. So Ori could basically just have been like before meeting her, I'm just going to say that she's Ursula so that I can essentially break up with her without having to deal with hurting her feelings, and I can continue my relationship with Naz and basically maintain the status quo and use the fact that she doesn't remember as a means of effectively divorcing her. So that is one thing going on. And Dune Beetle. So that's one theory, is that like she is actually in her own body, but Ori just doesn't want to restart the relationship and is lying to her to get her to basically go away. The other theory is that again, she's in her own body, Hyena Pack, but she's literally forgotten what she looks like. So she's altered the picture of herself in Ori's wallet. She's altered how other people remember her, including Ori, and she's altered everything else. She is in fact in her body, but nobody else, uh, she and Ori don't remember her that way, and therefore, like, I don't know. Basically, she replaced her image with the image of Ursula in people's memories, Horror of the Broken Lands. And that's why Ori doesn't recognize her, is because she forgot herself. And I don't know, I think from a philosophical standpoint, that is one of the more interesting questions in the book. But unfortunately, the author never really goes into delving into that. Um, I I want to say it's nice that she doesn't, because it leaves the question very much open to interpretation. But like, it seems like such a glossed over topic that I'm not even sure if the author knew that she had done that. Like, I think that may have just been a completely by accident thing. Similarly, when I was at the book club, somebody else mentioned Luke's River Shrine, that they were asked a question about Hooded Brawler. There was this weird side plot which involved the two people who got married, Paul and Emmanuel, and I forget which one, but one of them became a shadowless, Optrus Mark, and the other one was fighting the shadowless to. So, I think Paul was the shadowless, and he was previously a poet. And Emmanuel ended up forming a band of shadowed people who would basically fight the shadowless to try and get Paul's book, because the shadowless had taken over the library and they couldn't get the books back. Anyways, it turns out that the shadowless that was leading the fight was actually Paul, and there are descriptions of him like carrying so much that it seemed impossible, and blah blah blah. Stir the Sands, which is a new one. Create 3/2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So and one of the people asked like what was up with that. Like, he went from being normal and human to monstrously tall. And one of the things that I threw out that, I don't know, I've thought about it and is kind of really interesting as well, is this idea that he forgot who he basically forgot his like self-restraint, and I forget what it's called, but he basically just became entirely ego. And so like honored crop captain, whenever it attacks, other creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. Her words inspire action, her actions inspire victory. 200. So, Gideon's intervention, which I don't think I have. Nope. Choose a name. Opponent can't cast spells. Prevent all damage. Prevent all damage from sources with the chosen name. 15. So like he was described as like monstrously tall and like carrying like hundreds of pounds of bread stuff, of basically anything that was red, to try to because he was the Red King and he needed to make himself bread, whatever. And so, yeah, putting forth the idea that he literally forgot whatever tied him to reality and became simply his ego, which was this monstrously tall entity. I mean, within the context of the story, warrior, it makes sense in a weird way. But again, it's a topic that is not explored by the author at all. That it's questionable whether she intended to do it or not. If these are just things that she just happened to do by accident. And yeah, that's kind of my feeling about the book is there are moments when I forgot black. There are moments when like the book is strikes upon these really intelligent, really deep questions, but then the fact that the author doesn't even really get into them at all. It's like they're there. It's like you begin the page and then it gets revealed to you what's going on, and then by the next page the story has already moved on. There's no like waiting to there's no like waiting for any implications or any exploration of any such. It's just there and gone really quickly. And one of the other things is the librarian who runs this will typically write out or print up some questions to try to spark debate about the story. And the questions she pulled were actually from the author's website. And like there was no question about whether Max was in her own body or not at the end of the story. Like the story was, even though the story was written in a first person perspective and therefore had the inherent bias of whoever was telling the story at the moment, the author, like all of the questions seem to accept that the story is as written, which, like I said, maybe not very clearly. It can't be assumed that, like, you literally have to assume that this story is biased and potentially incorrect. But yeah, the author didn't discuss anything about like specifically how did Paul become that way, or what did he forget to become that way, or anything about like whether Max was in her own body or not. Like the questions were all kind of more centered around the like very like superficial questions about what happened in the book or what was happening in the book, and nothing really got into the deep philosophical questions being asked. So, from my perspective, like, it's really hard to tell if the author knew what she was doing when she wrote the book, because it is a brilliant book, like, but it's brilliant in the way where you have to read to a point and then actually stop and think about it outside of the book, because the book just immediately moves on, and yeah, you're gone like so fast that yeah, literally have to you literally have to think or read the book really slowly and like be on the lookout for places where it gets deeply philosophical. But like on the surface value, which is how I think the book was written, I think that I feel like she wanted to do a lot of really deep stuff, but ended up never getting past the surface, which is a shame because like I've been saying, the deep stuff was interesting. The surface was just chaotic and annoying. So yeah, I'd recommend it if you want something really deep that you kind of have to look for the deepness in. But if you want something that's fun and enjoyable, it's probably not this book. Um, Anyways, that's been 3 packs. So 49, 50, and 51. So we're up to pack 52 out of, I think we've got 61. Oh, no. We have 3 less packs than I thought. So we have 5 more packs in the booster box, plus 4 packs in the Planeswalker decks, plus the pack in the deck builder thing, plus those cards at some point. So, yeah, we're going to get on that. So I'm gonna try to get Amonkhet done this weekend if I stay here, which probably will. Um, and we'll definitely do some more Throne of Eldraine stuff. Uh, I've also got to listen to that new audiobook, and then there will be none by Agatha Christie. So probably next weekend, maybe. I'm not positive. I'll be doing a book review on that as well, along with opening Magic the Gathering packs. Yeah, so hmm, nothing getting delivered this weekend. I probably won't order anything for next weekend either. And then maybe I'll start getting back into buying some stuff the week after. And I'll probably also start buying stuff for a new computer as well because like I can get a UPS. I probably should have a UPS anyways. Um, but like a keyboard and a mouse, which like are things that I could use right now. I mean, probably won't, but and a monitor, and then I'll probably price out the computer and uh, yeah, I don't know. It's coming, probably in 2 months, but it's coming. All right. So this has been Zigzag.